Janet Yellen says she's not too worried about recession, while the Fed says brace for impact. The other day I talked about gaslighting as policy, that they lied to trick Americans into overspending and working for lower pay, even if that leaves us unprepared when crisis hits. Last week we got a fresh load as Yellen said the recession is not coming. She wants you to keep spending, even as a new Fed paper admits it's going to get very ugly. At a Bloomberg news conference in Paris, where Janet Yellen's working to use your taxes to bribe poor countries into joining the climate jihad, she gave a speech on recession risk saying, quote, "My odds on it, if anything, have gone down, because look at the resilience of the labor market and inflation is coming down." I've talked in previous videos how the labor market is an illusion. For millions of people plowed into permanent government benefits during the pandemic, about 3 million since 2019. And because unemployment only counts people who are actually looking for jobs, all of those able-bodied people on government disability reduce the official unemployment rate, even as American cities fill with able-bodied young men hanging out on the corner getting high. They're not unemployed, they're statistically retired. As for inflation, I've mentioned that core inflation, which the Fed takes as the real one and excludes energy and food, is stuck and going nowhere for 6 months now. The reason headline inflation is coming down is energy prices plunging, which they typically do in a recession, with an assist from supply chains that are now half empty, again, a classic recession indicator. Now, Yellen should know all this, and she has a Ph.D. She's taught at Harvard, and in fact, she's a former Fed chair. But of course, her job is not to know things, to instead cheerlead the Biden economy off a cliff. While Yellen was finger-painting utopia, the Fed came out with a new paper that the Wall Street Journal sums up as, quote, brace for impact. The paper found that investment and jobs drop much harder than thought among distressed firms, defined as firms in the bottom 25th percentile of distance to default, when monetary policy is contractionary. In fact, monetary policy is currently the most contractionary since the 1970s, going by rate hikes. And going by money supply growth, it's actually the most contractionary since the 1930s. Even worse, the paper finds that the share of distressed firms is already the highest since the absolute peak of the 2008 crisis. In fact, there have only been 3 episodes since the 1970s that were this bad. And keep in mind, that's counting full recessions. We're only in the first innings of this hike cycle, and those normally take 1 to 2 years to really hit. We're at 9 months. So the first light breezes of the coming hurricane, and we're already at peak 2008 levels of distress. To understand what's next, you've got to read between the lies we're fed. Right now, those hints of reality are saying it is the calm before the storm, time to buckle up. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.